What's offline?
So here, all right, welcome everybody. It is 5:33. Welcome to the TCP Building Design Committee meeting, and we will call the meeting to order. I will start with a few opening remarks from the agenda. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. At first, I should ask, is everybody hearing me okay? Sometimes people have trouble. You guys?
Loud and clear.
Okay. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. And all town facilities are currently open by appointment to the public. In accordance with the governor's order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be recorded and be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link which was provided in the published agenda. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 831-7089-6418 and the pound sign. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. I will now call the roll just to make sure we are all present. Dave Passios.
Here.
Brian Leighton.
Here.
Dave Blatt.
Present.
And Michael Ray Jeffries.
I am here.
Okay. And I am here as well. Obviously. It's been a long I'll tell you what, well, it's been a long year. I mean, I feel like I'm just chasing I just have no time for anything. So I apologize if I'm running around. And I was telling the guys, I was telling Dave, my boiler went down this past Saturday. So I've been without hot water while they replaced my boiler. So if I'm a little touchy tonight, that's why.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, I'll start off with public comments.
By the way, don't forget to check the Mass Save rebates on the boilers.
Yeah, $1,600, 800 for the heater, 800 for the boiler. I got it.
Yep, exactly. It's,
believe me, I'll take it. I need it.
exactly. Softens the blow. Yeah.
Okay, are there any public comments from the public? I don't see any public here, and I'm checking. I do not see anybody in the waiting room. So I will move on to any public comments from the committee members. Nothing. Okay. All right. So I see this as a pretty quick meeting tonight. I thought we'd take this. Well, first of all, Brian has to leave at 6:30. Are there any other time constraints? Any of the other members? Okay.
I'm around 7, but that's all right.
I am also at 7. I have to attend the Conservation Commission this evening at 7. So, okay. So I don't expect to be up against that anyway. So I thought we'd spend the bulk of the time this evening talking about kind of just maybe debriefing our visit to the select board. And I sent out an email today with some thoughts on the scope from DiGiorgio. Heather and I are still kind of working with them on this in anticipation of needing to provide a number for the warrant article that the select board voted on last week. But I thought as a committee, we would, if possible, kind of talk through that scope to make sure we as a committee are all on the same page. So that Heather and I can work with them on cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, we're moving, so there's that issue. And then just to update the committee, we're also, Heather and I had the conference call before our last meeting with them. We still have not heard back from them on some of the cost reducing discussions that we've had on the current cost. I will say that they had given us 2 cost estimates. They gave us a construction cost estimate, and then they gave us a cost estimate sheet. Soft cost, so construction estimate, and then they gave us one that was called soft cost. We need to add those 2 together to get a total project cost. So that was a little confusing, at least for me. And I've asked them to provide us with one cost estimate to consolidate the whole thing into one. At the end of this process, we need one cost estimate sheet that we can kind of circulate and publish to avoid confusion in the future. But I did want to mention that to the committee, that it's really an additive thing there. So anyway, that's just an update. I don't have, they're still, I think, researching some of the questions we asked, such as more detail on the MEP. Why isn't there more savings now that we've gone from 3 phases to 1 phase? Those kind of questions that the committee agreed that Heather and I should ask. And we're still waiting to hear back. So just want to give you an update on that. So if it's acceptable, I thought we'd maybe just go through the email I sent, the scope of work, and just discuss that and see if there's a couple things could come out of this. We could come up with some questions we need to ask the designers. We could come up with some directives. We could come up with some information we want to add. We could come up with some information we wanted to subtract. I will say we want to keep this cost minimal. So I want to minimize this scope of work. My opinion of this, and I guess I'm interested to hear what everybody else thinks. My opinion of this is we want to do as little work as possible to get a realistic number. We want kind of like a gut check on this. So in that spirit, I thought we'd discuss this a little bit. So I'll open it up. I don't know if anybody's had a chance. I know I sent this out late in the day, but I don't know if anybody had any chance to take a look through. They kind of prepared 2 sections. They prepared a scope of a project understanding in terms of like sort of what the basis of their work would be based, the assumptions that they would be based on, and then they gave us sort of an outline schematic form of what the scope of work would be. So I'm happy to have a round table here if anybody has any thoughts or input or questions that we might want to push back.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll start with, basically, I agree. I'm looking for, I agree with you, looking at just the bare minimum, just as a point of reference to try to compare new versus renew, if I can use it that way. I agree. I mean, I'm not sure if I really, we have an idea of what the site work would be already. It's just more the building right now.
Yeah, and it looks like they're doing, I mean, under their project understanding, they said, what do we got here? Building, excuse me, site access, circulation, parking assumptions will be the same as site design, which they've already prepared. And then somewhere else they said, maybe that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll reiterate that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel on this stuff.
Right. And do we get a kickback because they only did one town meeting from the last one? Okay.
Point noted.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on Springtown meeting, really.
Yeah.
Because that was one question I was going to pose now. I'm not looking for an answer, but Greg and everybody else, what are your thoughts if town meeting does not approve the articles, I'm sure they'll listen to the report, the update, but if they do not support the additional funding, I don't feel we're dead in the water at that point. We still are tasked to bring a proposal to town meeting.
Yeah, we just finally, unfortunately, we weren't ready to do it at this town meeting. And so we just bring, at that point, we just get this, we sharpen the pencils as much as we can and we bring it to the next available town
Fall
meeting.
town meeting,
Yeah.
okay.
If I
That's
if
my
I
thought.
get some clarification, so from what you sent over this morning, or this, yeah, I think it was this morning or this afternoon.
Whatever. I can't remember either.
Yeah, I was in a 2.5-hour long MPO meeting today, and they're usually 45 minutes. So I'm a little thrown off too. But hey, so the idea behind, for my vision, is that that we present the town with 2 viable options, and for them to be able to fund both viable options. I think, are we all on the same page of music on that one?
Michael, only if they approve us going forward with additional funding at Springtown meeting. Otherwise, we revert back to the original article.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that people want to see movement on these buildings. Notwithstanding, there is a small group in town, and I do believe it's a small group in town that is just opposed to really anything that we're going to come up with, no matter what. I think even if we had the best idea, and if it cost $1, they still would be opposed to it. And I think that the majority of people in town are reasonable. I think that we're all getting sick of these buildings. I don't really anticipate having a lot of difficulty getting funding for the next design phase if the cost is reasonable. If they're talking $100,000, then I don't think that we're going to have any movement there. But I think if the cost is below 75, 60,000, then I think that it's more likely that the town would, it wouldn't be as tough of a pill to swallow. Mr. Passios brought up a good point about the schools and the $500,000 that was spent investing and getting rid of in developing the schools. And there was a lot of money that was returned back to the town from projects in the past. So I think we have a good track record as a town of being frugal about these things and being diligent. I think everyone here, certainly is, we all, I would say, and I don't want to put myself in this group, but I feel as if all of you are of high caliber. And I think it's really obvious, and for anyone who's going to hear these reports. So I just don't see a problem with the town supporting it.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, I think I'm in agreement with your initial ask. So, of course, subject to what Dave said, what you just flushed out. I think that's the idea, is to give. We want to do enough work so we have a viable second alternative cost estimate, not a napkin sketch.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, I made, basically that comment that I thought it was the best we could do is to bring 2 proposals forward that we fully vetted and sharpen the pencil on, and then let the town finally decide yay or nay on either one of those. And if it's nay on both, then back to the drawing board with a different committee.
Well, by the time we get there, we may very well have a third option on the table, which, as I look at the parking calculation, I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but I know that there's talk about the old TCP design, the old location for the primary school. If it could work, I mean, I'm not beholden to really the location, but I think that based on my experience in this industry, that it's not going to work. That there's a lot of parking requirements, and even if we haven't done this yet, but if we calculate the square footage of parking alone that's required for this building, and we look at that lot, we just don't have enough room. I mean, and I don't think anyone's in favor of that being a fully impervious surface, which would, for the most part, I think, happen. By the time you put a building and parking lot there, there's no greenery anywhere to be seen. And we have to be mindful that there's a road over there, there's a house over there. We've given an easement to the Historical Society, so we're limited with how the dimensions of that parking lot. We cannot change really what goes on there. I don't see that as being from this stage, I don't realistically think it's a viable option. However, I think we should proceed with the mindset that of what those dimensions are on that lot and trying to have a building that could potentially fit. So that way, if there was the third option of that being the location, that it wouldn't be so much work to figure out how to get this building over there.
Michael, coming back to my comments about that during, I believe it was the select board meeting. Are you talking all uses that we have in the present program being
Yes.
built onto that property?
Yes.
Then I totally agree with you that you're going to have to take every inch of ground for parking, including the Ritter, to get enough parking spaces, and that's separated by a town street. So I can see town offices possibly fitting there by themselves. And again, I don't want to get too far off the track either, but I don't see all those uses going over there. The other concern I have that I thought of since the last meeting is that is the new building going to include a gymnasium?
Yeah.
Because there are, multiple
I think-
uses.
Yeah,
I think that
So-
goes back to our talking points of how we present this, is that we're going to have that extra space. We're going to have that room for expansion. We're going to have that community center. And that's the sell, that it's bigger space, it's room for expansion.
Yep.
We can
Yeah,
only
I think-
sell our job. Like, this is literally what we're trying to sell. And other ideas, I think, again, go back to out of our purview. And if they want to do town hall, they're going to have to decide that after they go through the TCP process.
Yep. And as I said earlier, let somebody else bring that proposal forward.
So Michael Ray, I do apologize to get back to your email request for the parking, but I did just look at the plan. The basic requirement that the civil, and I think I agree with this based on my memory of the zoning bylaw, office space, which is what they're classifying this as, requires 1 space per 1,000 square feet. So you're talking about 50 spaces for
Now,
50,000 square foot.
There is an article right now, and I gotta grab my iPad to pull it up. But there's gonna be an article at the town meeting this year to change our parking requirements. And so it's going to increase that dimension. Let me go grab my iPad and I can tell you what the new parking expectations would be. Let me go grab it real quick.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Because so what we just while he's looking for that, the required spaces for the building that the Meridian site plan listed for the TCP building project that we have currently is they have 2 here. It's weird. I think they're saying that we're required to have 52 spaces. We have existing 39 spaces for the building, but we're required to have 52 by the current regulations, and they're proposing 125,
Right. I
which
think
includes all that parking.
the 52 is based on one per
Thousand.
employee in there.
I think one per 1,000 square
Oh, one
foot. is
per
what-
1,000. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a 52,000 square foot building. So,
Right.
Or that's what we're gonna end up with, I guess.
Well,
'cause we're
the
gonna-
problem you also have is, and I know we know it's not out of scope, but if you use the old primary, there is no other place to park except for that lot. Where at least if you look at, they could always park at the school and walk over to town hall if you needed it. You know what I mean? So, there is no such thing as overflow parking at the other facility. You're gonna have to put 100 spots in there.
Yeah, and to follow up, so the new regulations, if approved, would say that an office, I swear a lot sometimes.
Yeah, I understand.
Especially when you realize what it says, right?
Yeah.
Let me find that. Okay, so professional office would be 1 space per 300 square feet of
That's
net floor
ridiculous.
area.
That's
Wow.
ridiculous.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So-
but-
Say that out loud.
So
So
that
we go
basically
from,
triples the
so-
requirement.
so we just made the TCP project a lot more expensive because now we have to go
100
from 50.
167 spaces. I
Yes,
did the
yes,
math, yeah.
yeah.
Well, well, that's for a medical clinic, a professional office, and a trade shop. And they have given a lot of different categories now, but there is no other office, designation besides that. So it's 1 per 300 square feet.
Right. So even if you look at just employees, we're looking at 160 spots.
Correct.
Great. Okay.
All right, well, that's a good point, but be that as it may, I mean, maybe we'll go a little far afield, but I mean, we'll have to, if that passes, we'll have to take it in stride, but
The issue that creates is that another one of the cost savings, even though it wasn't a large cost savings, is we briefly talked about eliminating the site work around the building and the parking on the back side, the wraparound road.
yeah, well, we briefly talked about the committee, but I'm telling you, I asked them to tell us what that would save us, so they're working on that.
Yeah, okay.
You know what, but Dave, but having said that, that area was kind of going to formalize that informal parking area that we have back there now. So we really have parking there now.
Right.
People park there now. We plow it. It's not paved, but it's recycled asphalt product. It's pretty good, and it works. It's flat. So we certainly can continue to use it as is. And that's kind of what I told them. I said, even if you think the fire department's going to want a circular access around this, can we just run that road and stop it right at that right at that recycled asphalt product, which we already plow, and we'll just continue using it for parking, and it could be used for emergency circulation. So they're working on it.
Great.
All right. Well, I mean, those are all great points. I think that if we're successful in getting the scope hammered out here in a manner and the cost with the Giorgio, I think the idea would be that at least some of the work that we do would be transferable if down the road neither of the two alternatives at the TCP location were palatable with the town, and we could transfer some of the information over to another location. I think that would be the idea, but in terms of how much, we'd have to explore that, I think, when the time comes. But
So the other thought is that if there is a town building just for town offices, but however, that doesn't really help us at all, right? I mean, if you're thinking about it, that we're saying, do we have a building that's only 20,000 square feet and all it is just offices? None of the other stuff is in there. And unfortunately, that leaves the school with the problem of, where do I put ACE? Where do I put after school care? Where do I put all that? But in reality, that actually is, could be, I don't know if that becomes an option.
Well,
And I don't mean to, I mean, if the cost is the big thing, that is, like, right now, we're looking at, that's probably 20,000 out of the square feet. Well, not that much.
1 second, Mr. Jeffries. Let me just make sure we got to remember our task. Okay, our task is currently the reuse of TCP for schools, community, and town office uses. So, and we're proposing modification to that allows for an option to look at a rebuild option. But I guess what I'm saying is, I'm just cautioning us to make sure we stay on task and don't get into the weeds, so to speak, with a lot of different scenarios. I think we have to look at, right now, we have to keep our eyes focused on our charge. So thinking about a building in the future that's just for town hall, for example, like Dave Passio said, it's probably for a different committee, because the charge of this committee would have been exhausted by that point.
Okay.
And so I just want to be careful. I don't want to communicate to the community that we're going down a road. We're really trying to give due diligence to our charge, and we think that this alternative, exploring this additional scope of work relates directly to our charge of this committee. So I want to be real careful. Some of the information that we develop in this, some of the information we've already developed and some of the information that we would develop under this new scope of work may very well be transferable to another location. But let's just be careful that we're not, getting too far ahead of ourselves.
We didn't talk a lot about the gym, I think because it was already existing. There wasn't going to be a lot of really changes to it. But I think that the gym use alone is such a critical piece of this plan, because it's an extension for the senior center. Really, a lot of their activities happen at the gym, and as well as for the youth organizations after school stuff. So there's a lot of usage, and it's also where we vote. So I think we have to be, whatever we come up with, I think we need to make sure that we're maintaining current uses. As we look at this big plan, the 50,000 square feet or so that we have so far, I mean, I do think that the product is going to be smaller. I think whatever we come up with is definitely going to be smaller square footage. The hallways won't be as wide, I mean, there's just going to be areas to shave off square footage at. But it seems that the core parts that we've designed are still going to be needed in the building. There's still going to be a multi-use gym area. There's still going to be a need for all the people, all those groups that we spent so much time talking to. I mean, we're still going to need that. So I think, although there is discussion about, a town hall only needs to be X amount of square footage, and let's look at other towns, other towns and cities have community buildings that are municipal and we don't. And so this is a multi-use town hall, multi-use community building. And I think we just have to continue to phrase it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I wonder too, how much we actually share the data too, of how much it is going to cost to tear it down and take out the lead and asbestos. Is really, if you don't redo it, you're going to have to tear it down eventually, because the systems are kind of at their end of their life. So I think sharing that data might push the renovation as well.
And at the absolute minimum, if you don't put a roof on that building, it's going to take itself down in the next 10 years, probably.
Yeah, I think John Lund has been pretty clear there that, we're working on, we're working with borrowed time.
Yep, definitely.
For sure.
One other thing, Greg, if I may.
Yep.
I'm not sure if my comment was heard clearly at the joint meeting, and I'd like to verify this, and I'm not sure if Brian would be willing to fact check it, or if the committee wants me to follow through on it.
Oh, yeah.
But I do believe that most of the uses, if not all of the uses that the school department is looking for in this program would not be funded in an MSBA program. The town would still be on the hook for building that space. I believe I did hear that. I know the administrative offices, they will not pay for, but I'm not sure about the other programs.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because that is part of the sell for the projects that we bring forward. Brian, do you want me to follow that up, or would you be willing to with the superintendent and Mr. Wander? Or
yeah, I can follow up on that.
Okay.
That's a great question. It's a really good question.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the comment's been made. Sorry, I just wanted to finish the,
go ahead.
the thought.
I'm sorry.
I had forgotten to add this to it. A lot of the comments have been made that, the school will just have to take care of their space on their own. And people mentioned the Turkey Hill project. Well, if it does get rolled into the Turkey Hill project, and I am correct, the town's going to be on the hook for every dollar for that square footage of construction if it's built into that project.
Yeah,
from my understanding.
Exactly. I agree with that the offices, if they built them in Turkey Hill, would not be covered.
Right. The programs, I'm not sure, but I do believe that, except for the ACE program, which is an integral part of required education, I think the other programs they would not build space for.
Yeah, I think you're right about that for sure. Like before and after school programs for the kids that are just, you know,
And the early learning and all of that stuff.
yeah, I think,
And then it gets back into the idea that they'd have to go into shared space where people are in different people's classrooms, which is not
Right.
ideal.
Right.
all right. Well, thanks for following up with that, Brian. That is a good question, Dave. Okay, so I think I don't see anybody really raising a big red flag on anything that is proposed in the scope. I think we just communicate to them that it looks generally like what we're looking for, and what we need to make sure that we have a rock bottom cost on the thing. Like we need a bare bones. We need to, you know, so we'll communicate. We need a real, we need to do as little work as possible to try and get us a you know, reasonable cost. We're not looking for, you know, we're not looking to go to design development, you know, schematic level with reasonable assumptions for costs and things. So, all right. Anybody have anything else on that issue? Okay. Let's see. Review and approve minutes. Brian was kind enough to circulate minutes for 1/27, January 27th. Does anybody have any edits or would like to make a motion?
Good job on the minutes, Brian. I think you do. I do read them in there.
The other one.
So thanks. So I move to approve the minutes from January 27th.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. I will do a roll call vote. Dave Passios,
Aye.
Brian Leighton,
Aye.
Dave Blatt,
Aye.
Michael Ray Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. I echo that, Brian. Thank you for stepping up and doing that. It's a lifesaver.
Yes.
Okay, I have our standard correspondence to and from the committee. I don't have anything to add there. I just am putting that in there now as a sort of a standard agenda item is there. I haven't received any correspondence that I know of, but anybody else have anything to add? This would be a great time if you have been out talking to people on the street. Correspondence could be a little, you know, we can broaden it to if you know, any conversations that you've had that are worth sharing or anything. So,
Greg, I have mentioned it before, but my circle of contacts in Lunenburg from week to week have been very supportive of this process and very supportive of what we're trying to move into Passios and maintain in Passios and rebuild it. They are a little bit, as we are, uncomfortable with the big number that it came in at and wish there were alternatives, but they are still supportive of us moving forward with and finding a solution for the entire program.
I would just add that we discussed Turkey Hill at the last school committee meeting, and really what it came down to after talking with John Londa about this too is that we really have to wait to see what the town does with the TC Passios to decide where Turkey Hill is going to end up. But timeline would work potentially that we'd have to extend the life of Turkey Hill as long as possible to make sure we have the funding. If TCP went through the renovation and got the funding, we'd have to wait until Turkey Hill was available to get the funding for a renovation or a rebuild.
Oh, one thing, guys, did you guys hear the presentation at the Finance Committee meeting a few weeks ago as to how those concurrent projects would work into our debt schedules and our debt policies? Because there was There was
I
a
did-
scenario that worked.
Yeah, I
For
heard that,
both.
I heard that it worked for both. Yeah, but I didn't see the presentation, but I did hear that, I think it was Heather that told me that it did appear to fit within our debt limit or whatever it's called, debt
Right.
policy.
Right. Of course, it didn't go into how much that affected the individual's tax bill, but it just, from a policy point of view, it worked.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
I'll also add some feedback that I've heard. I mean, I think that everyone I've talked to is generally supportive of the path that we've taken so far. I know that some people, there is still discussion about, is this the best location? And I do understand those conversations, but I think that, you know, we should look at what the reuse committee did for 4 years and appreciate that. That type of scope doesn't always, it's not always to the town's benefit when one committee is looking at so much instead of diversifying that. But a few things that just to clarify, I know I mentioned at the end of our joint meeting, you know, to the discussion about, you know, it's on a school campus. And I mean, I think it's important to remind, you know, people that the schools gave up this property, that it was their request to turn it over to the town, and that they decreased the size of their campus quite intentionally. There wouldn't have been any problem keeping it within their campus, but it just was determined that they didn't need it. So having said that, both these parcels, I think, you know, one thing that came up from a resident was, you know, to the point about it's too close to the schools, was how many parents drop their kids off every day versus how many people go to town hall every day. That there's a lot of people who come in close proximity to the schools every day, and the schools are paid for by 52% of the town. You know, and you know, we have exactly 6 registered sex offenders in Lunenburg, level 3s, exactly 6. And I don't think we should be making building plans around 6 people. And I also think it's important, you know, I don't want to get too far into that argument, but I think it's important to note that that the idea behind this multi-use building is bringing community together. That one thing that's come out in the last, you know, year especially, but I'd say the last 5-10 years with social media age, everyone having smartphones, is we're losing in some ways a sense of community. And having a multi-use building, I think, helps bring that back together. That there's a lot of opportunity. You know, I heard that National Honor Society students, many of them can't find volunteer work as a part of their requirement. And of course, it makes you wonder if town offices, you know, how much engagement there has been with different boards and committees in town, because there's always a need. So I think it's important for us to, in our phraseology, to continue to phrase this as a community multi-use building, to highlight not just the town office portion, but all those community uses that are going to benefit everyone. And we are in this age about the whatabouts. You know, you start talking about one thing, then it's, what about this? What about Turkey Hill? What about this? And I think that, you know, we have these professionals who are on our staff, who we all pay, and I think we should take some of their advice. And the schools are not coming to us. The school committee is not coming to us saying that they need this building for Turkey Hill right now today. What I continue to hear, I heard from Brian today, heard from the superintendent, is that, you know, they're going to maximize the lifespan of all their buildings, period. And that's what they're looking to do, to maximize the lifespan. They know that buildings are expensive, and it would be nice if you can replace a building every 50 years, but you can't. So I think that we do have a decent amount of support within the community for this project, and it's really to the credit of all of you who were on the committee before I joined, and then, you know, the continuing effort that we're all putting in here.
So hold on.
Wow.
I had to. Sorry, Michael. Yeah.
You got me a little bit. You got me a little bit, Dave. I thought you had a fly in your eye or something. All right, I appreciate it. Well, thank you for that.
Sorry, I can't. I appreciate the
Yeah,
fact that we haven't taken ourselves too seriously, too. By the way,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly.
I do. You know, this is not. You know, it's a lot of time
Right.
we spent.
Life's too short.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Anyway, okay. All right.
Greg, another thing I'd like to bring to the attention of the committee, March 25th, Thursday, March 25th, let's make sure I get the right date. Yep,
Yeah.
is the public hearing for the budget and the town meeting articles with the finance committee. And my feel right at the moment is that it's going to be split support for the funding article for our committee.
Yeah.
I think it would be important, or is important, that somebody outside of the finance committee that is on this committee be there to give some additional background and or answer questions. I think it goes much better with the finance committee if there's somebody there rather than, okay, this is before us and nobody's here to speak about it. So, you know, there's going to be very limited, possibly one-sided discussion about it.
Yeah,
So Dave, on that, I'm sorry, on Dave, on that, if you can just, you know, let us know as a group when that meeting is, you know, I'm happy to kind of support on, you know, I'm sure Greg, you know, I'm not going to leave it all up to Greg, but I'm
Well,
happy to.
I cannot make that day. I have a meeting that I have to present at, a fairly large project that I'm working on. Unfortunately, I
What's
won't
the
be able to make that.
What's the time on the 25th?
Should be 7 p.m. on the 25th of March.
Well, I
Hold
mean,
on, let me double check and make sure I've got a full schedule in front of me here.
the recent finance
doesn't have a
committees
time.
have been going for 4 hours. So I mean, is this what time realistically should we plan to attend?
Man, they're trying to compete with the selectmen's meetings, huh? Well, actually, they
Well,
go longer.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's strictly a public hearing and then a vote after the public hearing closes on whether or not the finance committee supports or does not support or holds off a decision till town meeting. So, you know, they should get, well, we've got to get through the budget first because the town meeting articles are after the budget. So it would be a budget presentation and discussion before getting into the articles. So I would guess at least an hour probably on the budget, but I don't guarantee that. Sometimes we breeze right through it. And there isn't an awful lot that's controversial in the budget from my perspective this year. It's more in the articles.
I can commit to that, to the 25th. As
All
well
right.
as Mr.
We'll
Platt.
have a few. We'll have a few. Thanks, guys. I can't.
Yeah, no problem,
It's gonna be
Greg.
too
You've
much for me.
supported this committee through the past year plus with an awful lot of time committed, along with everything else you've got going on in your life. So I think, you know, if the rest of us can, you know, do this one, not a problem as far as I'm concerned. My only question, and you know, open meeting law is just one of those pains in the you know what. If Brian, Michael, and I as a finance committee member are there, what are our responsibilities as a quorum?
I don't think, as long as we don't have an anticipation that there's going to be a vote of this board,
Mhm.
I don't think you have to post it. Like, we don't have to post it at town meeting, for example. I mean, it's only if we need to deliberate and vote. I think just being present, I don't think that, I'll check it, but I don't think you'd need to.
Okay, thank you.
But I appreciate that.
I always ask the question. It's just,
No, I know, I
it's
appreciate that.
gotten
You know,
worse
so
and
like-
worse every year.
No, I know. So I did it for the select board just because, you know, I thought we might, there was a reasonable expectation that we might need to make a vote on
Yeah,
something.
and something that I heard, and I believe I heard it correctly, is that town meeting, you're technically not required to post, each committee is not required to post a meeting for that meeting, even if your entire board is there, because it's I forget the term, but it's town meeting is one of those things that you can all be in attendance and don't have to post a formal meeting.
It's excluded or in some fashion. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a great segue into future meeting schedule. We have on the schedule the 7th and the 21st of April. So we'll continue with that. I wanted to just say that I am actually not going to be here on the 21st. I'm going to be taking a vacation, believe it or not. So
Oh. Okay.
I'll
You
need
will
someone to
laugh.
fill in. Yeah. So,
Well-
Dave,
we
what,
need
do
to-
you know what your schedule looks like, those 2 days?
Where are we at? The 21st of April?
Yeah.
7th and 21st?
yeah,
Oh,
For
I'm
both
not
of them
pla-
or just the 21st, Greg?
just the 21st.
Oh,
I'll be here
okay, sorry.
I'll be here on the
Okay.
7th. Yeah.
Yep.
I have no plans of being away. So, and all my other meetings end by 5:30. So,
Great.
So I'll need Dave, I'll need you to
Yeah.
pencil in,
all right.
taking the reins on that day.
I might not do the big speech that you do in the beginning there, but we'll do it. What you need.
We still say we need to have somebody do that on video and just run the video.
Yes.
Yeah, the general, thing
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
the funny thing
Yeah.
is like you're saying that, but the fact of the matter is if the person hasn't paid attention and is on the meeting, it's
They
too
don't- they
late.
don't-
right?
it's
They're
too
not
late,
gonna
yeah,
know.
that's too-
It's like-
Yeah, the stuff about how to get on the Zoom call.
Yeah, yeah. It's like.
I go to a lot of different towns and everyone does it. A lot of them do it the same way, by the way, but there are definitely some that don't even do any of that. They
Yeah.
just open it sort of like it always was. So I don't know. Whatever. All right.
This-
I don't want to, but I think we're at the end. Is there any public comment from the public? And I see no one in the waiting room. So I will move on to any final public comment from the committee members. I think we're going to get you out of here on time, Brian.
All right.
All right,
keep-
I will take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved at 6:20 by my computer.
Yep, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So I will take a roll call vote. Dave Passios,
Yes.
Brian Leighton.
Aye.
Dave Blatt,
Aye.
Michael Ray Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye from me. I think that is it, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, see you.